All right, we're live. Yes, it is. We're live. We're live. We're on. All right, and we have our special guest, the dog, Dog. Dogs are good for people to be entertained with. Look at. Speaking of our entertainment and our dog, has found her way. Well, I don't know if we can blame it on her. Somebody in the house has been dropping candy.
Enjoying what are like millet rolls and things.
Some I know, like you know how they have those treats for dogs to make their breath smell better. She got near my face, and I was like, "Your breath smells like a Tootsie Roll." And it smelled great. I'm like, "Wow, your breath does smell great." So I don't know if we're supposed to use Tootsie Rolls instead of greenies.
Well, technically, I hope it's not real chocolate.
I know what you're saying.
They're not supposed to be chocolate.
Just say it was the clear one or vanilla one or something.
Vanilla. Oh, I don't even
Nah, we don't know what it is.
Some candy that somebody else brought into our house. Because I surely didn't buy it.
I didn't buy it. Oh, okay. I thought you.
Like, you know how like.
I know where it came
like
from.
The
Yeah.
church, you know how the church was
Right.
like Oktoberfest and music. I don't know.
She's gnawing on the desk. She's gnawing on the desk.
My daddy made this.
Speaking of which, he is on. Good to see you there.
My dad.
Evangelist Ellis is on as well. And Intelligent. But yeah, so the dog's been, and what here was the other day, she was throwing up the candy. So I don't think it sat too well with her. But then again, you said too, it was the candy, it was the wrapper, it was everything though. All right, praise the Lord, brother Neil. Good to see you there. This Sunday is the Super Bowl. I believe. What is it? Yes, this Sunday. This Sunday is the Super Bowl.
I've already seen one commercial.
For the Super Bowl?
Yeah,
that was, yeah.
I think that's for the Super Bowl. It's been one of the best commercials. See, that's hilarious. Alexa.
Praise Lord, Mr. Thompson.
I know no names.
But
if anyone has not seen the Alexa commercial with Michael Jordan, hilarious.
Alexa, sports radio. No, somebody's stuff's changing now. But all right. Sister Claudine, good to see you, and Sister Serena. But with the Super Bowl Sunday, you got Tom Brady, who is 68, playing. No, he's not that old. He's 40. Maybe like 40. Well, he is one of the oldest quarterbacks now. He's like 42 or 43. I know I was exaggerating. But he's going for a ring without Bill Belichick, and he's going against Mahomes, who is the up-and-coming. Kansas City and Tampa Bay.
Who wants to win?
We don't care. We don't care. We don't have anything going on. I mean, whoever wins, good for them. But it's not going.
Are you having a virtual Super Bowl party? Usually every year you have a Super Bowl party.
But we usually, yeah. I don't know. I thought about it, but I don't know the excitement. So I guess if you're on the church, let us know if you're interested in doing that. And I don't know if we want to hang out on it or not. Yeah, but I would say if the Browns were in it, we would probably definitely have it. But like I said, you got Tampa Bay, Tom Brady's first year there, and then you got Mahomes.
68-year-old.
Yeah, 68-year-old. But no, I'm gonna tell you. I mean, he's in great. He's doing what no one else has really done before. So he's doing a good job. Good job. Shout out to him
how
and his.
Really?
What do you have to do? I think it's like 40. It's like 42, maybe something like that. So. But I exaggerate. What is he? 43. Yeah, he's 43. Yeah.
It's not bad.
Think he can run faster than me? He can lay ahead of me. 43. It's all right. He's got
you are a fast
6
runner.
Super Bowls or something another.
Ironically, and it upsets me. You're the fastest
Oh, your dad
runner in
knew
the house.
43.
You're the fastest runner in the house. And
I don't know if that's good or bad.
And it goes to you, then me. I don't know if it's Chandler or Blake. I think
Blake is trying to say he's number 2 right now.
Blake is a cheater. And I thought Izzy would be the fastest. That's the dog, but Izzy is the slowest in the house.
She gets more beauty sleep than anyone else.
Oh yeah,
she does have. Our dog does have a
bad day.
All right.
A little less funny.
Praise the Lord, down Zilla. I'm sorry.
A warning to those who call for technology support.
Oh, yeah.
I happen to know a lady, 73, 74. Anyway, she recently needed some tech support. She called to get some tech support. So she reached Apple. Apple then connected her with the additional tech support.
Something like in Hawaii, right.
And Hawaii, was willing to assist her as long as she provided her Zelle or her Cash App. And she said, well, how much is this going to cost me? And they said, well, you know what? We most likely won't be charging you anything.
Just give me your Zelle and Cash App, but I won't.
We want to be prepared before we give you any assistance. And they charged over $400 to her account, bought a whole bunch of gift cards and everything else. And just so you know, like, she looked up the phone number. So it just shows you how, and I know this is not phishing, so to speak, but here she was searching, and this is what comes up on the internet because no one controls,
but you know what?
Regulates the internet.
No, but here's the other thing though too. Sometimes people buy one digit off because you make a mistake in dialing. If you're one digit off, they buy those numbers too. Excuse me, to try to scam people. But what happened to her happened to me before with Microsoft. Excuse me, trying to get some assistance. That's that Chipotle. Trying to get some assistance with Microsoft. And like you said too, you get this number and then they're like, oh, well, we could do it, and then they want to get in and get on your computer, but they're going to charge you. And it's like, no. So, I mean, there's a lot of scams out there. What you say? My mom sent one. The electric company called and said that she had a refund coming and all that stuff. So I don't know. It's you gotta watch out there. They will get you.
And it seems like it's run a little bit more now since we are in.
I'm sorry, Elder Rushton is on, and I just see his Steelers stuff up there. I gotta take him down. We love you, Elder Rushton. God bless you. I know. And Sister Marsha is on. God bless you. Good to see you. Praise him. All right, so be careful out there. Hey, scams are going on. Anytime you gotta give out your money, your information for social, your social pay and all that stuff. Be wary. That's what I'm calling it. What do you want to call it?
I don't know.
You're talking about Zelle and Cash App and then what's the other stuff? Venmo, all of that. So
she is working with her bank now.
Or what's the electronic wallets then, or whatever. Right. I don't know. But you gotta be careful. Now sometimes too, when I'm suspicious, I'll say, well, I'll call back. And then you try and call back to the company and go.
I had a situation, remember before?
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be Apple. And I said, let me see. And I checked and the Apple said, we don't make calls like that. They called me to assist me with technology. I wasn't having problems with.
All right. So, hey, this is Black History Month, and we want to give a tribute to the African Americans that have contributed to our society here in America, because Black history is our history. So let's take a look.
Today we will be looking at Mary McLeod Bethune. She is in our Black History Spotlight today. Black History Spotlight, Mary McLeod Bethune quote is, "We have a powerful potential in our youth, and we must have the courage to change old ideas and practices so that we may direct their power for a good end." Mary McLeod Bethune was an educator, civil rights activist, and a prominent government official. Ms. McLeod Bethune taught that a fair education should be available to all young people, regardless of race or gender.
All right. Thank you. Behind the scenes, I was working on that I had a little trouble.
Out today.
No, that's good.
It's
been a long week, long day, something along those lines. All right. Welcome to our Wednesday Word, our Bible study. We're glad to have you all on. We pray that God's word today will be a blessing to your soul. And today we're going to talk about just some things that if you look at life and what's going on, And I'm pulling these words from a writer, Paul Maxwell. And in his writing, he wrote, "Trauma is not a life sentence." And that's going to be our theme. We're going to do a little series on trauma is not a life sentence. And today we're going to focus on the trauma around me. And the reason I want to look at this is because I think sometimes we may not realize that we are dealing with trauma, or sometimes we may be dealing with it and think that there's no way out of it. And um, that can have some real detrimental effects on our life, our living, our well-being. And I know you and I were talking, and you were reading different books and information and so forth, and it was just talking about how trauma can really affect us, affect the body. I don't know if you have any of those quotes or anything that you want to pull out, but um, we have to be careful out there. I mean, as we love God, we believe in God. We also have to look to say, are we doing with what needs to be done in our lives to heal, to move on, and we'll get to that. We're not going to get to all of this today, but also I think the key is to have victory. Sometimes we kind of deal with it, and we may have moved on a little bit, but we really want to get to a place of victory that is not going to keep us just defeated or bound up or tied together. You go
Yeah,
ahead.
this is from a book called Eyes Are Never Quiet. And it's probably one of my favorite books. I don't know if you can see it, but I have lots of marks in this book. It was a book that I was required to read, but found that I enjoyed it so much. But one of the things they say in here is adversity and trauma change our brain,
Mhm.
perception, and behaviors in dramatic ways. Trauma lives in the nervous system and can reorganize how our brains respond to everyday occurrences. I just want to just add one last thing, and it says most negative behaviors arise from stress response, brain state, and chronic levels of adversity, both of which create a brain that is wired to defend, protect, or shut down.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing too, like you're saying, just how the body, like it will shut down in a protection, so to speak. So I mean, trauma's real. Trauma is real, and when we look at it, some people may think God doesn't care, or that God can't prevent suffering. And the reason being, when you're going through something and you wonder, well, why did I have to face this? Why am I dealing with this? Um, and some people are living with their wounds, and they feel they'll never be healed. So when we look at this, God doesn't care. He can't prevent it, or I'm wounded and I'll never be healed. Those are all misconceptions, because we can be healed. Now, I'm not saying it's an easy process. God does care, and God can prevent suffering. Now, it doesn't mean that He's always going to do it. And this is where now we want to bring in our biblical side, our biblical aspect in our teaching Wednesday word. Welcome, everyone. As we look at this, Galatians chapter 1, it begins to open up some things for us. And it says, who gave himself for our sins to rescue us from the present evil age, according to the will of our God and Father. So when we look at this right here in Galatians, who gave himself for our sins to rescue us from this present evil, we have to understand presently we are in an age of evil. We're in an evil time, an evil place. Evil dwells, it exists, it moves around. And because we are in now this fallen world, this broken world. So, let's remember God made everything perfect. And um, Adam and Eve brought forth, well, Adam brought forth the sin. So when sin comes in, the disobedience came through them both. When sin comes in, they were put out of the garden, and then now they were no longer perfect, and their offspring wasn't perfect. So now we're in this fallen world. We know Satan was at one time known as Lucifer in heaven. He wasn't in the earth. And then he got cast out of heaven and put in the earth. So what's now in the earth? Those that disobeyed, those that were kicked out. We got we got three people kicked out. So then now they build this broken world. So when we look at this, trauma is a part now of our experience in a broken world. Trauma is a part of this broken world. It's a part of our experience. Now, most people will deal with some type of trauma in their lifetime. Some may be more, some may be less, but most people will deal with some type of trauma in their lifetime. And as we throw around this word trauma, what is trauma?
Well, when I think about trauma, I think about stressful experience,
Mm-hmm.
things that kind of maybe can overwhelm our spirit, can overwhelm our minds. And if you would, they say there's three types.
Okay.
In this same book, the three types of trauma that they discuss are positive stress, tolerable stress, and toxic stress. And so they say that positive stress is a type of stress that helps us to learn how to cope with the ups and downs of life. So that's the first type.
Okay.
And then the second type is tolerable stress. And this is the second level of human stress response in a system which more severe difficulties or challenges activate the stress response. And here we're talking about like car accidents, emergencies in your family, death in your family, etc. But then we have the one that we're talking about today, which is that more traumatic experience of stress. And this is the highest level, the third level. And this type of stress is triggered when we are exposed to ongoing levels of adversity, oftentimes that are unpredictable, neglect and abuse, and emotional abuse, exposure to violence. Those are some of the things that can really trigger anxiety and just again that brain triggered response that causes us to really start to react differently.
All right. All right. So when we hear that, trauma disrupts lives. It can destroy our hope, and trauma also can isolate people. People can go into their own isolation from other people as well as from God, because when we're dealing with this trauma, it's almost like we uh, fall into a place by ourselves, lock ourselves in, and we don't want to deal. Sometimes the trauma has had an effect on us where is that defense mechanism that, I don't want to get hurt again, or I don't want to go through something, or I'm scared, I'm worried about it. And, trauma has effects on our lives. And it can be done in several different ways. It can be, like you said, emotional, it can be physical. It can affect us like what it was saying, tolerable. Some things we can tolerate, but then sometimes the trauma may be so great we can't tolerate it. So it's very interesting. But we're going to look at the Bible, and the Bible shows us different events, different tools, different happenings that take place that lead to trauma. And when we look at that in the Bible, so when we look in the Bible, we see murder, we see rape, we see dismemberment, we see kidnapping, we see forced marriages, genocide, slavery. We see
Infanticide,
right. We see that. So that's the killing of infants. We see
corruption.
corruption and injustice. So when we look at, I mean, this is the Bible. We think of the Bible, and the Bible's, it's holy. It encourages this and that, but it gives us the real also. This is life. This is what's happening. This is the real. And when we look at this, look through Genesis. All through Genesis, we see family dysfunction. I mean, all throughout
Starting at
Genesis,
the
we
beginning,
see.
Cain and Abel.
Well, the beginning would be Adam and
Well,
Eve.
but you
So,
know what I
but I
mean.
got you. Yeah, but that's
Those are
still
the
right, right,
children
right, 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 right.
of the
Cain
beginning.
and
You're
Abel,
right.
right, right. So Cain kills
Yeah.
Abel.
I mean, as a parent,
Mm-hmm.
you know, can you imagine the traumatic experience that Adam and Eve had to go through to find that
Right,
out? And we don't talk about that,
right,
but it
right.
had to
Mm-hmm.
be traumatic, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Right, right. No, you're right. So as a parent, you love both children, and one takes a hurt to another and so forth. And now,
Life.
but now you're dealing with both. So you have grief, but then, well, I guess it's just a double grief because you have grief over the other one that they would go that far. So yeah, that's a traumatic experience, and that's a lot to deal with. And some, in life, some of us have had to deal with traumatic things like that. Everybody's life will say it's not, that rosy Beverly Hills, I don't know, sunny
Privilege.
day type life. But even in privilege too, they're going to face trauma as well. I mean, like money, position, all those kinds of stuff. It won't withhold you from
That's true.
trauma. So um, trauma is out there, and as we look through this dysfunction, we're seeing Noah. If we look at the life of Noah and we see his children, so we see Ham. Happens as Noah, after the flood and everything took place, they come and they plant a vineyard, and Noah gets drunk. As he's drunk, he's laying in his tent and he's naked. As he's laying in his tent and he's naked, his son Ham comes in and sees this, and it's the Bible presents it more so in a way in which there's a mockery going on of it. Like he's not concerned about his father. He doesn't want to cover up his father. He's not he runs, go tells the other brothers like, hey, look at that. Da, 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 da. So then they come in and they grab um, a cloth and they walk in backwards and they cover him up so they never see him in his shame, in his nakedness. And there's a lot in that, about um, us being in a position of our shame, our nakedness, and all those things. But just looking from the family side of it, the Bible tells us that Noah ends up cursing Ham. And as he does this, we see that what Ham did was out of line, that um, he didn't want to give his father probably the honor he should give him, and he wasn't trying to protect. I mean, he ran as instead of going to cover up his father, he ran to show more people, even though they were his family, but it was still. So when we look at this, so then now you have this dysfunction going on in this family because what's behind what Ham is doing? There's something behind this there. When we look at Esther, Esther was a Jewish orphan. She was a Jewish orphan. Now, she didn't let the king know I'm Jewish, but she was a Jewish orphan. And she was raised by her uncle Mordecai. And as she's doing this, she finds favor in the eyes of the king, and she's crowned to be his new queen. So when we look at this, look at her life, though, especially during this time, she doesn't have much choice over her life. Um, she comes into a place where, depending upon how the king feels, she could just be one in a harem. You know what I'm saying? Seen, not seen, whatever. She was an orphan, so yeah, her parents, what's going on, her uncle, all those things, and then the uncle gives her the ultimatum: "Hey, you better do something because they getting ready to kill the Jews, and you better do something." She's like, "Whoa!" Right? So, she's dealing with her trauma in life, about her life is on the line. Her life has always been in the balance, so to speak. And now her life is on the line. She goes before the king. King can just say, kill her. I didn't call you. You know, Jonah and Nineveh. We see the issues here where Jonah's dealing with forgiveness because Nineveh had enslaved his people. And Jonah knows how wonderful God is and how forgiving God is and how gracious God is. Right. He doesn't want God to say, no, don't worry. Don't worry about those slavery years. That's all under the blood. The blood wasn't in, but you know what I'm saying? Don't worry about those slavery years. And Jonah like, no, we're not gonna forget that, Lord.
I'm just go ahead and leave. I don't got nothing to say to that.
We're not gonna forget that. But look at that. That is, oh, I'm sorry, Evangelist Neil. I'm just now seeing that. Should we blame Ham or his drunk dad? Well, see, now that's another dysfunction too. No, you're right. So, but here's the thing. Even though Noah was wrong for what he did, Ham still exposed the nakedness to his brothers.
Yeah.
He didn't have to expose it to his brothers, and that's why I said too. There's something behind that as to why Ham wouldn't be concerned about protecting his father, but yet exposing his father. You know. So, but no, don't get me wrong. No, Noah was wrong for getting drunk. No, Noah was wrong, but there's the exposure. But Noah also had the power because he was the one that cursed Ham, and that's where you look at the I won't go there right now, but that's where you look at some of the cursings to the descendants of Ham.
Yeah.
So as we go on though, but Jonah, here's the thing, and this is something for us in our hearts too. So this is some of the trauma that we see when we can't forgive. Jonah doesn't want to forgive Nineveh, and with God, it's not about what Nineveh did because look at this. When Jonah tells Nineveh that God said, repent, turn from your wicked ways, they did it
immediately.
The king, everybody was on board. They did it right. Sackcloth, ashes.
Yep.
Let's do what we got to do. And that's exactly Jonah.
He wasn't happy.
That's exactly what he didn't
want. And I've mentioned this before. And that was a hard thing for me to understand. And just in case it's hard for anybody else to understand it, you brought it to me best. And I've said this before, maybe a few times. Mm-hmm. I said, why wouldn't he want them? And I understand that they were his enemy. I get that. Mm-hmm. But why wouldn't you want your enemy to say, I'm sorry and change, you know? Mm-hmm. And because I would think that would be a good thing.
Because that trauma. Because he's still hurt.
And
still upset.
You had to bring it to me as far as like the aspect of like if it was the KKK and they had done something major. Like, because I mean, that related to me, right? Mm-hmm. But I mean, you would think that, I know for me, I'm sorry goes a long way. You know, repentance, you know, turning away from something you've done, that goes a long way with me. He did not want it.
But like you said, somebody kills 80 people and then they show up in court and they're like, I'm sorry. And may be sincere. You kind of like, you 80 people, too past, I'm sorry. But I mean, but that's us, but that's not God. God is like, okay, you're sorry, cool.
And he wanted them to change. Mm-hmm. He desired for them to change. He sent Jonah there to tell them to change.
Right.
And that's the thing about God. Despite what our traumatic experiences are, despite what trauma we may even put somebody else through, mm-hmm. He's always there to accept us back and to love us despite what we've done. And it's just such a good thing. Read somebody. I'm not going to go during Black History
I'm sorry, I couldn't put it up. I'm sorry. I'm trying to read it. I can't talk and read at the same time when I want to, but I was going to go. So imagine that, yeah, we gave the honor to Black history in the beginning, but now this is Bible time. Black history is over. Not split. No, but it's not. But we I know what you're saying. But I'm sorry. As we look at this though, with Nineveh, it's about our hearts, and that's what I say. It's not easy for us. It just shows Jonah. I mean, and that's why I love the Bible. How it shows us. You know, it's like somebody didn't just, so to speak, paint a beautiful story in the Bible. It shows you the good, the bad, the ugly, everything. You know what I'm saying? So we see Jonah, and we can relate to that if we've been truly traumatized. And that's what I say. I think it matters too of how much it really hit you and affected you, because you were not going to have the same experience, but it crushed one more than the other. So Jonah was, you know, he just wasn't over that. He's like, no, I didn't forget. I remember. You know what I'm saying? And that'd be just like look more recently. In times that the Holocaust, you know, when you're looking at that, they still pop up like, oh, here's a person that was hiding. Let's put them on trial. You know what I'm saying? They're not like, oh, you know, that's water under the bridge now. No. We're going to try to put you on trial. They're like, we remember gas chambers. We remember, you know.
His name was John
Yeah, Demyanya. Yeah. They're like, we got to send him out the country. They, I remember last I think he's passed away now. Right. But, They were trying to export him, but his defense was his health wasn't good to travel. But they're like, no, we're not letting this go. So anyway, I want to get back to looking at the Bible. When we look at David, and David is another one that deals with these family issues, and he's dealing with trauma. So and his family's dealing with trauma. When you look at Ammon, who is lusting after his sister, his half sister Tamar, and she's telling him, if you were asked. Someone asked that, and he goes after her, and he goes forward with what he's going to do. And now his brother Absalom finds out, and Absalom is angry. And he's like, we're going. So, and here's the crazy thing too: Absalom waited 2 years before he takes him out. Takes out Ammon. So he kills his own brother. So now David's dealing with all this trauma. The brother is dealing with trauma because you hurt my sister, and then now
sister's dealing with trauma.
Right, yeah, the sister, and then Absalom, who kills the brother, so to speak, defends the sister, and then he threatens and starts a coup to take over the kingdom and throw his own dad out of power. Trauma.
Family drama.
David's on the run from his own son, who's ready to be next in line and be king. So he's dealing with his trauma. Daniel, look at, and here's the thing. I was thinking about this today. I'm sorry, Daniel. I don't know. I think, and maybe other people look at it differently. I never really looked at their story harsh until I started talking about this trauma. Like, they're in captivity, but he's fed this, these fruits. We get the Daniel fast and all this kind of stuff. And look how he didn't have to eat the keys. And, but he's a slave. I don't know. I just think it like I just see Daniel prevailing. He's in the king's favor, all this kind of stuff. But I guess I am thinking more about it. Even in the lion's den, think about it. He was thrown in the lion's den, and the lions don't consume him. But that's a traumatic experience. But yeah, that's your dog. That's your dog dealing with her own trauma from that Tootsie Roll. If you didn't see it earlier. So he's thrown in the lion's den, he's praying to God, and God and so forth, of course, saves him, helps him, and all of that. So when we look at all of this, I think one that stands out to me is Job. I just think of when I just hear Job's name. See, now Job is different. I don't think about Job's victory when I think of Job. I think about his trauma.
And I wonder if it's because it seems so minor in the story.
What, Job's trauma or his victory?
His victory.
Because it's like the last.
It's like, yeah, he got his wife, his new wife, and he got all that.
Oh, by the way, right.
And it's like you hear his wife curse him, his friends, like you need to die. It's just like he got a lot going on.
Right.
Kids gone, family gone, animals gone, nobody is hurt,
Right. So that's what I say. I think of that. And that's the thing. When we look at Job, Job stands out the most, like you said, after all, because Job just seems like a man of losses. Yeah. You're losing this, you're losing. I mean, in the beginning, it paints a wonderful picture. Job, he loves God. His family is nearby. They're together. His children have dinner together. He has all this cattle. He has, wife and friends and all these things, right?
He loves the Lord.
And then he deals with losses, his wealth, his children, his friends. I mean, and he doesn't lose his friends like he loses other things, but I mean, just in how they interact with him and treat him like, what sin did you do? This and that. It's like you don't feel like a friend anymore, So in all these losses, how does one deal with tragedy? So this is the lesson we get from Job. How do we deal with tragedy in all these losses? The insight that the book of Job shows us about suffering. And Job 1 and 20, I want to focus on with this. I'm not throwing that scripture, but in Job 1 and 20, then Job rose in his robe and shaved his, then Job rose and tore his robe and shaved his head and fell on the ground and worshiped. So Job, he gets up, he prepares himself, he goes before the Lord and he worships. And he comes with such an insight, and I almost want to know how long did it take you to get here? Like, did you pop here immediately, Job, or did it take, we're getting the writings, but this is, 4 months later. You know what I'm saying? But the insight where he says, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord.
What a mindset. What a mindset.
So now that I'm thinking about it, this is he was prepared.
Resilience.
This is how our devotions and things prepare us. Our time with God prepares us for these tragedies. So when we look at this, we have to look and see, is worship our first response? Because I say it's probably usually not.
And I think it just depends. I think it just depends on who you are. I don't know if it's my first response, honestly.
Right, but ask them. Is it your first response?
Right, sometimes I think it just depends.
Mm-hmm.
You can look at the tragedies that you go through, and you can sometimes thank God it wasn't worse. You feel like He spared you in the midst of that traumatic experience. That you weren't completely you didn't completely come to whatever that particular situation is. But I think that that's the importance of a spiritual walk, because if you don't have a spiritual walk, you don't even know to do that.
Right.
People who don't have a connection with God typically fall apart because there's no hope in anything greater. And I think and I'm not saying every traumatic experience you can just become resilient from it.
No, I know. Right.
Don't get me wrong. There are things that are so great. Like we were talking earlier,
this trauma
they literally change the brain's chemistry. We know someone whose literal brain chemistry has been greatly impacted by the trauma, where it's causing them physical changes and harm. But I do believe that in the midst of that, knowing God can help. We say in the church, He's a mind regulator. He's a mind regulator, and so they can give you various prescriptions to change that brain's chemistry. But when you have a relationship with God, He's a mind regulator.
Right. I think also it looks to put things in a different lens, and I think that's where I want to get to with this, because and we're going to talk about some different ways to recover and have victory. But just in today, in looking at the trauma around us, I think that when we look at Job and all this is going on around him, so I want to give an example, and this is a true story too, where there's a man that I know, he's somewhat newly married. They have a baby. The wife passes away in labor. So now this is traumatic. Like this is new relationship with us, and we had all these plans, and then now you're gone, but I'm left with a baby. So I come to think about this, the trauma. So then now when we look at trauma, so like if you're driving down the street and your windshield gets cracked with a rock, if you're driving and you focus on the trauma of the crack, you're missing out on so much more that's going on, and it puts a lot more in danger. So like with let's say you break a leg. There's so much more of you that still works. We got to keep working. And like with that guy, he has a lot of responsibility now to, okay, I got to move forward still with this baby. This has happened, and I'm not gonna make light of it. I mean, you got to deal with it, but you can't let this shut everything down. And that's where I'm getting at with trauma. We have to learn how, and this is look at Job. So much going on. So I lose my children, but I still have more going on.
Keep going. My mic wasn't on the whole time. Keep going.
I asked you before. That's all right. So yeah. I'm sorry, I'm throwing off. So anyway,
sorry.
So where's Jeff? Jeff, you should have told us.
Jeff wasn't here.
Okay. So when you look at this, but I still have other things going on. I still have my wife. I still have other things, and this is why it's hard too. If a couple loses a child, a lot of times that marriage ends in divorce, because I'm dealing with mine, you're dealing with yours, and neither one of us, we can't really help each other. So now it's become so traumatic, so much trauma going on, and we have no healing. But we have to look and say, well, we have some things that still have to go on in the midst of this trauma. Right. And if we just focus, if I just focus that my arm is messed up and I'm not going to cook, I'm not going to clean, I'm not going to get dressed, I'm not going to do anything because my arm is hurting. It would be almost like, that old story that's not true about how if a man gets sick and they can't take nothing, they can't do nothing, everything is shut down. That old fable tale there that this one sickness has shut everything down, but life still go on. No, but seriously, but listen to this. Have you ever been sick and then your kids need something? You sick and you cooking still and you're doing stuff still. Like that is like, man, I don't feel well, but I still gotta do.
Why is get up? Why is get up?
The Bible says a just man gets back up. So anyway, but in trauma, and that's something that we have to look at. And this is part of the lesson that we learned with Job here. Job comes to an understanding. He said, look, my wife, she wasn't really mine. She was God. You know what I'm saying? Like he said, naked I came into this world. So he's saying, like, she's gone. My children, they're gone. Now, I'm not saying he's not going to miss any of these, but now he's going to another perspective, another lens that God is above all of this. Right. So now he begins to see a worth of God. This shows his position in God now. There's a worth of God that's greater because what does he do? What does he do? He worships. So here's the thing. When things are so big, so let me go here. If you hear somebody in the backyard or it sounds like somebody trying to break in, there's only so much you're going to be able to do. So what you're going to do is you're going to call the police department. Remember we did that for the deer? There was a deer in the backyard. Well, not we, you. No, it was you.
I called.
But anyway, because you didn't know what it was. It's like something back there, something going on. So you call the police department. The police come out. So what you did was saying, I know what I can do now, but I'm going somewhere else that has another type of authority. So Job does this. And this is why worship is his choice, because what else can I do? Mm-hmm. I can't bring my wife back. I can't bring my children back. I can't bring this cattle back. So now I have to go. This is the worth of God. I have to see that I'm understanding now that was that time. That was that time for that. My health, my body, I can't resuscitate this body. If this leg isn't working, if this isn't going on, that ain't going on. So where do I go? Mm-hmm. I go to the Lord. Mm-hmm. And that's the place that we have to understand when we're dealing with trauma. It's important when we have this relationship with God that we're able to go to God. Our faith, our belief in God. Now, it doesn't mean that he's going to take away the pain. Doesn't mean that he's going to take away the loss. And it's Job 3:3 that says, let the day perish on which I was born. Job says that the day that I was born, let that perish. I wish that it had never happened. And the night that said a man is conceived, he said, let that all perish. Job was like, man, this is tough for me to take. So it doesn't mean that God would take away all the pain. Doesn't mean that he would take away the loss. But Job knew the best place for me to go is to God right now. Mm-hmm. Because just like if I need to call the police, if I'm here and I'm saying I need to call God. So he goes to God and he gives God worship because he sees the worth of God. I need somebody that they can handle this. Right. Because I can't handle this. And that's the thing. There's nothing wrong with us saying, too, that I can't handle this. Sometimes I think people feel they need to have the answer. They need to have the solution. And especially if you're used to, so to speak, keeping it together. What happens when the keeping it together can't keep it together? Right. That's that trauma. Right. And when that trauma kicks in like that, you've had it together, you've been keeping it together, you've been efficient, you've been working all that stuff, but then boom, it comes and smacks you. Then now we got to look and say, okay, I need somebody that can really help me get through this. Mm-hmm. And that was the place that Job went. He went to God, went to God to worship. And that states a lot, that position of understanding that this worth and value of God I see. So I want to encourage you out there. As I said, this is going to be our series that trauma is not for a lifetime. And we need you to understand that somebody that just believes I'm never going to get over. I'm going to always have to go through this. I'm going to always have to deal with this, that you can be healed. You can be delivered from it. But let me say this, just like with anything else that we deal with, whether it was alcoholism, whether it was some addiction, some issue, whatever, you also have to want to come out of it. See, that's the thing. Some people, they don't want to come out the trauma. They want to stay secluded in it. So when you make up your mind, and that's why I wanted to point out in the Bible that what you're going through is not unusual. What you're dealing with is not unusual. But what you're dealing with, you have to be willing to go to a place and say, you know what? I want to come out of this. And I'm going to say this in quote. See, this is the decision of making sure that the trauma doesn't hold you captive. So when I was working at Best Products, I remember it was a Saturday. I was going into work around 2:00. And I went in, I clocked in, I come out, and the place is packed. There's people all over. So I go to this lady. I'm just getting there at 2:00. The place is packed. So I don't know how long you've been in line, but I just got here. I go to her. I said, hey, can I see your receipt? I'll get your stuff and take it out to your car. I take the stuff out to her car. And as I'm putting, I don't even remember what the item was, but it was heavy because she couldn't carry it. You know, it was heavy. It was big. It was heavy. I'm putting it off the dolly. I'm putting it in her trunk. And as I'm putting it in, she calls me the N-word. She calls me a lazy N-word. And I'm like, I'm carrying your stuff. And I just came to you first. Now, how am I lazy? And how am I, that N-word and all that? So for a moment, let me say it, for a moment, I wanted to snatch what was in the trunk out and throw it on the ground. That was initial instinct, I'm just saying. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So I'm angry, but I'm stunned, and I'm thrown off guard because I just got here.
Was she just sitting there looking at you? How was she responding? Or she just get in the car? What happened?
I don't know. I think I saw red. I don't know what happened after that.
Blanked out. Traumatic experience.
So listen, so I go inside and I'm mad at everybody. Yeah. I mean, white, black, don't matter.
The book talks about that. The book talks about that.
Listen. I'm mad at everybody. I'm mad at everybody. But then, it hits me, and I said, you know what? She gone. She at home watching her TV. And I said, am I going to let this affect me? Because she didn't know about me. She just used those words because of her frustration of how long she had to wait. You know what I'm saying? So, and I'm at this time, I'm working 2 jobs and going to college, and I'm doing everything I can. So how does this come to me? So then what happens is I get a peace. And I said, you know what? Her words are not going to have this power over me. See, I had to release from that place of trauma.
Forgive me. That's tolerable trauma, though.
What? I was cool.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It was tolerable.
Oh, saying that.
Yeah, it was tolerable. It was a more toxic trauma.
I'm not defining the level as to what it was. Right. I'm talking about the procedure, the process. See, now I'm telling you what happened, and and you're like, oh, that wasn't nothing. That's what you said. You're like, oh, that wasn't nothing. That was tolerable. I'm gonna be quiet. I'll say so. But anyway, we're going to get out of here before I get in trouble. So, but God bless you. I will encourage you out there. If you're dealing with trauma, if you're going through something, know that it doesn't have to be your life sentence. You don't have to stay in trauma. We're going to talk about how to get through your trauma, how to recover, how to heal, and how to have victory. So we want to encourage you out there as we're going through the different transitions together, and you're going through different things by yourself, that go to God and worship. Allow yourself to get to a place of healing and forgiveness and peace. All right. God bless you. Did you have something that you wanted to? Okay. I didn't know if that was you or what's going on with the dog.
Just a dog.
Okay. Now that's your dog. We got the dog. Yay. We got a dog.
Have a blessed night,
Anybody
everybody.
want a dog? No, it's like, I'm playing. Sort of.